Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. So today we're going to be looking at the life of Sandra Valks.
Oh, this should be interesting.
Right. And the source material we have is this article, Sandra Valks. Beyond Boundaries, Learning to Trust Your Inner Voice.
From Rich Woman magazine, I believe.
Yes,
I
exactly.
remember reading that one. Really fascinating. It really makes you think.
It does. And I think one of the first things that struck me, actually, Sandra starts by comparing her early life to a frog slowly boiling in a pot of water.
Ooh, that's a powerful image.
Right, that whole idea of getting used to something uncomfortable gradually and then suddenly, it's too late.
Yeah, I get that.
And she's specifically talking about the expectations,
Hmm.
marriage and traditional roles, where you're putting everyone else's needs before your own.
Hmm. Makes sense.
Have you ever felt that way? I know I have. You get stuck, but you don't really know how to break free.
It's a common feeling. And it was especially poignant considering the time when Sandra was growing up. I mean, think about those societal norms back then. Women were expected to, well, prioritize family and domestic life over everything else.
It was almost like this unspoken rule, like passed down through generations.
Exactly.
And Sandra actually talks about that. She said at some point she realized she was living according to her parents' and her ancestors' values, not her own.
Wow. So it was like she was carrying this invisible baggage from her
It
past.
sounds like it.
And that's what's so interesting about these intergenerational patterns. There are these subtle and often unspoken beliefs and behaviors. We inherit them from our families.
Like a blueprint for how we're supposed to live.
Yeah, almost like a blueprint. And sometimes we don't even realize it's there until we start to question things.
And that questioning seems to be exactly what Sandra did, because she makes this huge decision to go back to school.
Oh, right. To pursue a career in life insurance.
Yep. And get this, it was against her husband's wishes.
That's a bold move.
Seriously, now that takes guts, especially back then. I mean, life insurance was even more male-dominated then than it is now.
You're absolutely right. It was a very courageous decision to challenge those
Yeah.
deeply ingrained societal norms.
Mm.
I mean, it wasn't just about getting a job. It was about defying expectations,
Mm.
proving that women could succeed in a field that was, well, traditionally reserved for men.
Makes you wonder, was there a moment of clarity? Or was it a slow burn of frustration that finally reached a boiling point?
Yeah, tough to say. Probably a combination of things: the disapproval of her husband, potential judgment from her community, the sheer difficulty of breaking into such a male-dominated field.
Right. But also that internal battle, grappling with those ingrained beliefs, questioning whether she's even allowed to prioritize her own ambitions.
Exactly.
And then here's the fascinating part. She succeeds. Like, she really succeeds. She even qualifies for the $1 Million Roundtable.
MDRT.
Yes, which is a huge deal in life insurance. But even with all that success, she talks about feeling like she didn't belong, like she didn't deserve it.
That's imposter syndrome for you. It's so common, among high achievers. You're successful, you've got the accolades to prove it, but you still feel like a fraud, like you're waiting to be exposed.
It's like constantly looking over your shoulder, waiting for someone to say, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be here.
Exactly. It's like she says she describes herself as a little farm girl pretending to be somebody she's not, like carrying this image of herself,
Yeah.
of where she came from. And it clashes with the success she's achieved.
Yeah, and on top of all that, she's trying to maintain a strong commitment to her family. She talks about planning family time, weekends at the camping trailer, trying to, strive for that work-life balance.
Right. But being pulled in a million different directions.
And you almost have to wonder, is her imposter syndrome somehow connected to those traditional roles that she's trying to balance?
It's possible. Maybe she felt like she couldn't fully embrace her success without jeopardizing her identity as a wife and a mother. Like she had to downplay her achievements to fit into those predefined boxes.
But she's trying to be everything to everyone. Successful businesswoman, devoted wife and mother, and somewhere in there trying to find her own sense of self. It's got to be exhausting.
It is. And I think maybe that's where the cracks start to show, right? I mean, it's one thing to challenge those norms and pursue your own path, but it's another thing entirely to reconcile those achievements with the expectations you've internalized.
And that internal struggle seems to have really taken a toll on her because, well, she eventually reaches a point where she experiences this period of clinical depression.
Yeah. It's a reminder that even the strongest among us, well, we all have limits. And Sandra's story, I think it highlights how important it is to recognize when we need to step back and prioritize our mental health.
Wow.
You know, Sometimes hitting rock bottom can be a wake-up call, a chance to reevaluate, to seek support.
And it's interesting how she describes this period as a turning point. She goes through years of therapy, group work, and it's like she's peeling back those layers of those ingrained beliefs, expectations, all that stuff we were talking about earlier.
Deconstruction and reconstruction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dismantling the old blueprints, rebuilding based on her own values, her desires.
And out of that process, she develops this straight talk approach, which she becomes known for.
What's your take on the straight talk thing? It seems like from the article, it's more than just being honest. It's assertive, setting boundaries, speaking your truth, even when it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's not about being brutally honest or insensitive,
Right.
but being authentic, direct but compassionate, using your voice to communicate your needs, stand up for what you believe in.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's part of what makes her such a successful communication specialist.
Hmm.
She's not just teaching people how to speak, but how to use their voices to create change.
And think about the impact of that. She's helping people become more confident, guiding them through those financial complexities, promoting emotional well-being. It's like she's taking all of her experiences, the good and the bad, and using them to empower others.
Turning pain into purpose. She's taken those difficult experiences and transformed them into strength, into wisdom,
Yeah.
to share with the world.
And she's very open about the fact that, well, she's still on a journey, right? There's this quote, she says she feels like she's floating in this huge space, unsure of which direction to take next. Ever feel that way? That sense of uncertainty, even after achieving so much.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something a lot of us can relate to,
Yeah.
regardless of achievements.
Yeah.
That what's next feeling. What's my purpose? Where do I fit in? Like reaching the top of one mountain only to realize there's a whole range ahead.
And even with that uncertainty, she ends her story with this message of resilience, embracing your true self, sharing your voice with the world.
It's powerful. And it speaks to the importance of embracing the unknown. It's okay to not have all the answers. The journey, that's where the growth happens. That's where we discover who we are, what we're capable of.
So if we were to boil Sandra's story down to its essence, what would you say are the key takeaways for our listener?
That's a good question. I think, well, first, the importance of trusting your inner voice, having the courage to break free from those expectations that no longer serve you. Second, embracing your authentic self, even if it means challenging norms or facing, internal resistance. And finally, that understanding that personal growth, it's ongoing. It's a journey with triumphs and setbacks. And it's okay to embrace that uncertainty and keep searching for your own unique path.
It's funny. We hear these messages all the time, right? Follow your dreams, be true to yourself. But Sandra's story, it really brings those concepts to life.
It does. It's not just a slogan. It's a real journey with real challenges.
Hard-won victories.
And what's striking is, well, her story isn't over. She's achieved a lot, but she's still searching, still evolving.
Right. It's like she's saying growth and self-discovery, they're not destinations. They're ongoing processes.
I think that's a really important point. It gives us permission to not have it all figured out,
To be on that journey, to be in that huge space, trying to find our own thread.
Exactly. It's what makes her message so relatable, so inspiring. It's not about perfection. It's about embracing the messiness and continuing to learn, to grow.
And I keep coming back to this, She didn't just keep all this to herself. She uses it to help others. Her work as a communication specialist, guiding people through financial stuff, empowering them to find their voices. It's like a direct extension of her own journey.
It is, isn't it? All the pieces. The financial expertise, communication skills, the personal growth, challenges, triumphs, woven together.
Into something unique, impactful, like she's saying, hey, I've been there, I felt lost, I struggled, I overcame. And now I want to help you do the same.
And that brings us back to that straight talk, right? It's not just about honesty. It's about using your voice to create change.
That we all have a voice. And our voices, they have power to shape our lives, the lives of others. Sandra's story is proof of that.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Sandra Valks, what would you say is the most valuable takeaway for our listeners?
I think the reminder that it's never too late to embrace your authentic self, to pursue your passions. Growth and change are possible at any age.
Beautifully said. And if you could ask Sandra just one question, what would it be?
That's a good one. I think I'd ask her, what advice would you give to your younger self, knowing everything you know now?
That's a great question. Maybe by reflecting on Sandra's journey, and asking ourselves that same question, we can unlock some new insights
Mm.
about our own lives, the paths we're on.
And on that note, we'll leave you with that question to ponder. We hope Sandra's story has inspired you to embrace your journey, to trust your inner voice, and to never stop learning, never stop growing. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring,